Welcome to the College Scout USA show, where we dive into the world of college soccer. I am Tom Irving, and each episode we speak to coaches, players, and experts to help you understand the pathway to playing college soccer in the United States. Today I'm joined by Jamie Cleland, who has a very interesting journey in the US. How are you doing today, Jamie?
Tom, how we doing, mate? Appreciate you having me on. All is
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Always good to get someone as experienced as yourself on, and it's going to be a very good first episode for us, and it's going to be hard to beat this going forward. So we'll get right into it. We'll briefly speak about your kind of history in football. You can tell us a little bit about, firstly, your time in Scotland before moving over to the USA. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting for sure. I kind of like bounced around like academies back home. Started off with Hibs, and then I moved to 11-a-side with Hearts. Ended up getting released from Hearts after 2 years. Then I joined Cowden Beef, which was a little bit of a different, unique pathway, especially coming from Hearts, where everything is like, pro, and then you're going to Cowden Beef, where it's like, all right, you're now doing your own washing, and you're playing with stock cars going around the track. So that was interesting. So I was there for a couple of years, and then my last 2 years I moved to Stirling Albion, which I guess paved my way into America. I really enjoyed Sterling. Obviously, at that point, I had no plans of ever even thinking about America. It was kind of when I was there where it was brought up to me. But I enjoyed Sterling, really loved it. I learned a lot about myself, made mistakes, learned from them. I was on the bench a bunch of times for the first team. I ended up making one pro appearance when I was 16, so at least I can say I played pro
Yeah,
in Scotland. So I made one game. We beat Albion Rovers 2-1.
not, not bad.
Yeah, so
Still
yeah.
go in your pro career there, so that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was good. Definitely, as I said, jumped around a bit, but I think it did pave my way into going over to America.
Yeah, and then is that where you met David Binney through Sterling? Is that
I did.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. So my last, I guess even like going into my last year, he obviously had the company Sport and Futures USA, which is where
Yeah.
we both connected. I would always be like the fill-in guy. So whenever he done like the showcases, I was always the guy that like, oh, we just need a goalie to come and play, and I would just like play, get the extra reps and just play. And all the lads there were just all lads that were obviously interested in going towards America. And at that point, I wasn't. I was such a homebody. I thought, yeah, I'm going to be a pro. I'm going to do this. Kind of wasn't thinking of anything else apart from I'm just going to be a pro.
Hmm.
Uh, Once I just get through high school, and then that was it. But yeah, it was through David Binney, and then obviously slowly as it started getting on, my mum and dad were pushing me, and then obviously stuff started to kind of materialize when like highlight tapes and stuff were getting sent out.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, like, I wonder if we've ever actually played against each other back in the day without knowing it, because I played in a few of those showcase games, so probably have.
Probably did.
Probably,
Yeah, we probably
probably
did.
scored a couple goals into you at some point.
Probably, yeah. More than likely.
And then that takes us into our kind of next part. So you move over to the US.
Yep.
I guess, what made you decide to make that move? What was?
I think as I really like dived into it, there was a point where it was like, yes, you can be a pro at Sterling, but like getting really into reality, it was 2 nights a week, a Tuesday and a Thursday. The pay was like peanuts. You're talking 100, £120 a week, like just peanuts. And then obviously I would have had to work as well. And then obviously diving into the work piece, like I generally had no idea. I was just so focused on, right, I'm in high school, I'm focusing on being a footballer as well. And then, hey, like you gotta get another job too. And I was like so torn between like, all right, I can't. And at that point, my grades from high school to get into university in Scotland weren't good enough. So I'd never ever planned to be someone that is, going through like the UCAS stuff and like, oh, here's my top five schools. I'd never processed that. I was just so glued on, all right, I'm going to be a footballer. And then obviously the lure of, to be honest, this is more my parents actually of like, no, you've got it, you can do both. The lure of like going over to
Yeah.
America and being like, all right, you can be a full-time footballer for 4 years, but you're getting yourself a degree as well. I think that was more of a lure. And then obviously the funny piece of like, all right, I can actually get into school in America.
Yeah.
That was what led me towards that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's quite a good point. There is such a wide variety of levels that offer good programs and different levels for both the education and a quality of football standpoint, where there is more entry level universities with easier restrictions and stuff. If you are looking to get the move out there and you change your tune and actually put effort into school,
Yeah,
you can do so in your first, your first couple of years, and then move on to a bigger school, or
100%.
more reputable school. So that takes us on to our next point. So tell us about your career in college as a student athlete then.
Yeah, so obviously going back to like Scotland, I guess for anyone that's thinking of doing the journey, you'll obviously likely you're like Tom, you would send your highlight tapes out to other coaches and build relationship with coaches. So I had a couple of options. I had where we ended up both going, University of Maine, Fort Kent. I had a small school in Georgia. And then I had a school in Alabama as well who actually came over to watch me. Um, when I was at Stirling, and he came over to watch me, and then he went to Sweden to watch a Swedish guy. He ended up going with the Swedish guy, so it would have been pretty unique if I'd ended up down in Alabama. But yeah, obviously I chose going to Maine, purely for the fact of like the offer that was kind of made to me was one that benefited myself and my family. Kind of the draw of what they were offering, and just obviously just wanted to go. I just really wanted to go. And then obviously on the flip side of that, like I don't want to say I was naive, but like I didn't at that point. This was like going back 12 years. I didn't really know anything. Like I just thought, all right, I'm going over to America. Pop me on the plane, drop me off. Here we go. Like, I was definitely naive to the point of like, all right, I'm going to go to Maine, and obviously Maine is not Scotland, right? As you know, it's a very different, unique place. So obviously, get there in Maine, and again, I get there and I'm loving it. My first year, I loved it, and that's purely to the point that I knew nothing else, right? Like I get there and there was myself and three other Scottish boys that all came from the same company, that all were there at the same time. So it was almost a little bit of a good thing because there was three lads all doing the same thing, and then there was obviously your mate Ross who was there already, who had been there for a year. So he was like our eyes and ears on the inside. Like he already had the experience of being there. You'd obviously just transferred out, and then obviously me and the other two Scottish guys who ended up living together all were there at the same time. So it was good. I really enjoyed it. First year we get over there and it's just all play, play, play. The classes are kind of smooth. It's a smaller school. Um, class sizes are small. I really thought I fitted in well. And then I guess moving on to sophomore year, I guess things just changed a little bit when we started traveling and I started seeing all the other schools, the other places, and I just kind of thought like, I'm kind of stuck up here in Maine, like literally one of the furthest points away in the US. Like, I think the place in Maine was like the mile one of the drive, which is I guess
Yeah.
the road that takes you from the top of the right side of America all the way down to Miami. So we were like mile one, right? And as you know, it was like so far away. It was cold. Like there was snow there from like literally maybe like September, October through like April, and like
Yeah.
to someone in the UK, you're saying snow, right? And it's like, all right, just a little bit of snow, you'll be all right. But this is like,
A foot overnight.
this is
Literally, you'd
literally
leave your
like
house, there'd be a foot of snow on the floor, and you'd
I'm
you'd be struggling to walk to school and stuff.
I'm wearing ski pants to like class, like bundled up, get to class, taking like five jackets off. Like it was definitely very unique. The second year was more challenging for me because he brought in another goalkeeper. We kind of like we done like halves each, we done games each. It was very very interesting. Obviously, freshman year we won everything pretty much. Like I played every game. We got to the national championship final and lost. And then like we literally went like game in game all year, and then it got to like the nationals my sophomore year, and he ended up going with the other guy. So then at that point, I would probably already set on like, all right, I want to explore other opportunities, which I'll kind of get into in a little bit. Like I think the transfer portal now is more prevalent and more unique, but obviously going back then, I don't think it was as popular. And like instead of me just popping on a portal, it was like I just had to sign a letter of release, and then I kind of had free reign to talk to whoever I wanted.
Yeah.
So this was obviously my sophomore year, and then actually David Binney had connected me with a school in New Jersey called St. Peter's University,
Hmm.
which is ultimately where I ended up going. I went down on a visit and kind of loved everything. It was literally like you think of what the school was in Maine that I went to. Like St. Peter's was like the polar opposite. Like we're 10 minutes from New York City, CAA Division One. So again, we'll get into it in a little bit. It was obviously a little bit different in terms of the level, and I think I found a place where I was happy. Different campus, city campus, here in like emergency vehicle lights and police cars and that. You're like, oh wow, this is different. But right in the city, we're right by a place called Hoboken, which is right by the water in New Jersey, 10 minute subway from New York. So being from Scotland, this was like obviously a big draw just for the social side of things.
Yeah.
Like I feel like my life got better.
Yeah. Yeah, you changed from a small school in the middle of
Yeah,
nowhere, which is it's great. Like good for a lot of people, and I really enjoyed it. I'm glad my journey started at Maine as well, at
100%.
UMFK. But it's moving into a more populated place, a bigger school and stuff must have been, yeah, better
100%.
facilities and all that. It would
Yeah,
have been eye-opening and more like what when you speak to scholarship companies and stuff. I remember when I first spoke to people, like they show you the pictures of all like the biggest amazing facilities at the best universities, and they're like, oh yeah, you could go somewhere here, and
yeah,
it's like 10% of people end up at those schools, but
of
you would have
course.
been at one of those schools eventually, which is
Yeah,
brilliant. It's professional level facilities, a lot of the time, which
of
is
course.
great. Yeah. And then so you graduated from St. Peter's, is that right?
I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I graduated from St. Peter's in 2017.
Yeah.
Really, again, going back to it, really enjoyed my time there. I think I learned a lot from that experience. Met my current fiance there, so like I think my life got better there, and just even for my mum and dad to come over, it's so much easier for them. They came over a couple of times. Met friends there that I'm gonna have friends at my wedding party, and like I feel like my life got better there. So graduated there in 2017, and I kind of like still had a little bit of like I want to play. So I for a little bit I tried, went to like some tryouts and played summer league in a place called Columbia, South Carolina, which by the way was probably the best summer that I've ever had. It was amazing.
I remember I came to watch you play in Charlotte
Yes,
once as well.
I
Yeah, yeah.
remember it. I remember it. So that was amazing. A great summer. Again, that's another like facet to the college thing. If you don't end up wanting to go home, there's a lot of opportunities now to stay out here in the summer. Obviously, if you go back home, it's not usually like you're not usually in a season, right? So you can pick up trainings here and there, but there's a lot of leagues out here now that are super popular that are filled with other college kids. So you're almost playing like college level games over the summer whilst training and staying sharp to get yourself ready for kind of preseason. So I done that after, and then figured out that it was going to be a little bit difficult to play. Just kind of being international, it was a little bit harder. Didn't have an interest at that point in going home, and then I just started coaching. So I started coaching and kind of took up a love for it. Literally got thrown literally right in off the 10-meter diving board. Here you go, and absolutely loved it. It's definitely different to playing. Obviously taking a little bit of a step back from the playing side.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. Went and worked for this company called UK Elite, which you're probably familiar with. They're pretty popular. Like they actually bring coaches out from the UK to come over and work summer camps or to work like seasons. So you'll work like spring, summer, and fall, and then head back. So I worked for them, and I was honestly just doing so much coaching to the point where I loved it. And then I eventually was like, oh, I'd love to take that step into the college games. So, yeah, that year at UKLE, I was there 18 months actually, really enjoyed it. Like I said, so much coaching, so much time on the grass. I was coaching 9-year-olds and I was coaching like 17-year-olds. So it was a unique pathway, and I don't think I would be where I am if I didn't do those 18 months there. I was
Yeah.
I was working so much to the point with it. Like I was making mistakes, learning and getting better.
Yeah. And then so after that you moved back into the college scene, is that
I
right?
did. Yep,
Yeah.
I did. So I got my first college job at a school called Monmouth. So for those of you that aren't familiar, Monmouth is like it's a small school, Division 1 school in the Jersey Shore, just by a place called like Asbury Park, kind of close to St. Peter's. They actually like when I was at St. Peter's, we played against Monmouth a lot. So I actually was familiar with the facility, and that was like my first kind of like way into college coaching, I guess. So I was doing that, and then I was also doing like other coaching on the side. So I was busy, but like I kind of knew like I wanna work full time in college. Like this is where I want to be. I've been here as a player, and now as a coach, I knew like this was it. So I started there pretty much right after I'd finished with UK Elite. Started there in like a July, July, it would have been July 2019, and just got right in there. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
And then after that you moved back to St. Peter's to be assistant coach there, was that right?
No, so I done 3 years at Monmouth,
Okay.
and then eventually I got a full time role at the University of Delaware. So
Ah, all right, yeah.
So 3 years, Monmouth. Those 3 years were like a grind though. It was like learning the college pathway as a
Yeah.
coach, whilst like kind of doing my club coaching at night just to like supplement my income a little bit. So it was a grind, but then the actual pathway to being a full-time college coach where I could just do that, that's where I really like dive deeper into it. Because when I was at Monmouth, it was more just like I just show up to the field, I'll do my session, a little bit of office work, and then I'll go do my college stuff at night. Whereas when I moved to Delaware, it was all right, you're full time, I'm recruiting, planning everything, planning the sessions, the scouting. I'm doing everything that I kind of wanted to do. So that was, once I got there, I was super happy.
Yeah, and it would mean again a bit of a bigger university,
Exactly.
more better facilities, more things to play
100%.
with. And yeah,
100%.
and then so you've obviously got good experience in a variety of different levels. You played
Yep.
and coached in D1, played in NIA, and kind of USCAA, which is
Yep.
a small organization that not many people know about, but it's
Yep.
pretty much NAIA, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure you played against, and watched a lot of D2, probably D3 as well. So
100%.
what would you say is the big differences between the different levels?
I think the biggest difference, and I think it's something that you mentioned, is probably one is the facilities, two resources. So like the funding that you're going to get, the scholarships that you get, the facilities, the more money invested within the programs at D1 as opposed to NEIA are like night and day. And even like within D1, like going from Monmouth to Delaware, like the resources that we had at Delaware were way bigger than Monmouth. So like even within D1, within NEIA, you're going to get a lot of differences between the NEIA, right? But I think it's like the biggest thing is like it's not even the players. There's a lot of you can probably speak for it too, but when I was at Maine, the team that we had at Maine, we probably could have beaten some Division Two, Division One schools, no problem.
Yeah, yeah,
Like at D1, like, you're recruiting a different kind of player because you're looking more into like the academic piece as well. Like if you're like I always when I was recruiting players, I always told players like your academics are so important. Like if you don't have an X GPA, like whether it's a 3 or a 3.5 GPA, no matter how good you are, you're not going to get in. So, there was a little bit more leeway for me anyway at NAIA. Like my grades were not great. I
yeah,
mean, they were okay coming out of Scotland, but they were fine to get into Maine
yeah.
and then
And I think
transfer.
I think we saw that in UMFK a lot. We had a lot of
Yeah,
older players who would have been too old to
100%.
play NCAA. We had a few
100%.
players who wouldn't be eligible through, where they'd played previously. There was some like
Yep.
played quite a lot of professional football. There was yeah, some that didn't really invest in their education that much.
Uh,
They could barely, get a
Yeah,
D
yeah.
in a lot of their classes. But they
I
got
think
extra
at
help.
NEIA too, at NEIA and D2, you also have that flexibility of taking the year out, whereas at
Uh,
D1 you can't. So
yeah,
like there's like an age restriction of it, and that's personally why I couldn't go D1 straight away is because I took that year out after high school, and that kind of took me away from it. But you can obviously transfer in. So
yeah,
after my 2 years, I was able to transfer in fine because you basically have at D1 you have 5 years to complete four, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
So if you take your year out, then you pretty much have to go like 2 years at NEI or D2 and then transfer over to D1 if that's the kind of pathway you want to do.
Yeah, yeah. And then you've now moved into the professional game. You are head
Yep.
of goalkeeping for Philadelphia Union's Academy,
Yep.
is that right?
Academy, yep.
So I guess two things. Like firstly, how did that job come about? And then what would be the differences you see between the college level and people wanting to take the step up to the professional level?
Yeah, I mean that this job came about. I think I got kind of, I guess, lucky. I guess everyone gets lucky, right? But whilst I was at Delaware, like, absolutely loved it. There was a lot, made a lot of connections. I'd saw going from the college game to the pros as like my next step. As a coach, being in college, like I feel like you're kind of limited to what you want to do at times, just with like your time on the grass, right? Like it's so intense from August preseason through, if you go into your playoffs and you're in November, and then you're almost done until January, and then it's the spring season, but it's not really the same. Like you're scuppered to like we're on an 8 hour week, where we were in Delaware it's freezing, so we couldn't be outside as much. And then obviously you go into your 20 hour weeks, but you're only building up to like 5 games, it's not 20. So I felt like for me as a coach to get better, the next step was to do that. So there was obviously a job that came up that I applied for and went through quite a rigorous interview process and ended up coming out with it and super happy, super happy. I'm super happy to be here learning a lot as we go. It's obviously a lot different to college, just to the point that I'm coaching so much.
Hmm.
I'm obviously coaching a lot more players. So the way it works is like we'll have our U18s in the morning,
Hmm.
and then in the afternoon we have our 16s, 15s, 14s, 13s, just because they're in school during the day, so they'll come in the afternoon. But I think it's now pretty cool for me because I'm now on the other side of it, right? Like, as you said, I'm now helping these players either become pros or the ones that don't end up being pros will go to college. It's now cool again, like I said, being on the other side where I'm helping them, telling them about the different pathways, about the different schools. And like I think it's good for me too because obviously I've been there, so I can tell them like what it is that they're looking for and what the
Yeah,
coaches are telling them from their side, just from having been on both sides of it, right? I was
yeah.
there as a player and there as a coach, so it's cool to be able to help them go through that process to make sure they're doing the right things. The biggest thing that I tell them is the research piece of it. And again, that could be for anyone, right? From players from Scotland. Like you have to do your research. More so being from the UK, right? Because it's not like you can just jump on a plane and go look for the campus. Right?
Yeah.
But do your research in terms of the rosters, right? Like if I'm helping a goalkeeper and they have two freshman goalkeepers and you're interested in X school and they have two freshmen, then it probably doesn't make sense, right? Because those keepers are there for another 4 years, right? So you want to be looking at schools that are interested for you
Hmm.
with maybe like senior heavy goalkeepers, right? So if they
Yeah.
have juniors or seniors there, then maybe they'll be looking for a goalkeeper when I'm ready to graduate from high school in 2 years
Yeah.
or a year, whatever it may be. Research is 100% the biggest process. And again, this is also difficult being from the UK, the next piece, but you have to love the school, right? Don't just pick a school because you like the soccer program and maybe you like the coach, right? Like in college, you're on like yes, the fall is so intense, but you're involved in soccer maybe 2 hours out of the day. Like you'll do an hour to hour and a half of training, and then you'll be in classes all day, and then you're doing whatever. So you have to love the school. So again, you've got to be doing as much research as you can, whether it's sending videos. For us at Delaware, we would always like do a good job of putting stuff up on Instagram, like day in the life, like showing off our facilities, our field, like which helps internationals, you know. So
Hmm.
the phrase I always use was, if something happens on day one, are you still going to be happy to be there? So like if you end up getting injured on day one of preseason, are you still happy to be at the school? And if the answer
Hmm.
is no, then you've probably not made the right decision, right? So like
Yeah.
you do have to think about that element of it as well, right? And again, that's when I going back a little bit, like when I said I was a little bit naive, like I just was like, oh, I've got a scholarship offer from Maine, I'm going to head over. Great. Didn't really know anything about it until I got there and was like, wow, there's a lot of trees here and kind of in the middle of nowhere, right?
Lots
So
of snow. Not much to do.
literally, so the research piece I think is absolutely
Yeah.
massive, and I would encourage everyone to do that. Just in
Yeah.
terms of especially when you're helping players out and doing their emails, like start looking at like, what if you're a right back and they've had a right back that played 15 games but he's still got 2 years left, then it probably doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then, so you've obviously had a good amount of experience. Well, you recruited players, you guided them through the college process as a coach. You're
Yeah,
now helping people on the other side who are kind of
yeah.
getting to the college or professional level. Do you see any kind of common traits or common themes from the players that either do well, or maybe the common themes in the players that don't do well and don't move on to the higher levels?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, especially when I was recruiting players, is like you also have to be a good person. I think when you're a coach, like yeah, you go out to a pitch and you see a player that you think, wow, this player's top, but how are they as a person, right? Because as a coach, you're looking at how is this player gonna help me in my locker room for the next 4 years,
Yeah.
like you have to, like, for us as coaches, well, if I like Tom Irvin, I'm gonna talk to three or four of Tom Irvin's high school coaches, high school friends, club coaches, because we want to know how you are as a person. And again, we've had players that we've recruited and they've transferred out after a year because they've not understood the role and they've not being good people. So I think it's really important to, yes, find good people. Another piece of it is obviously the academics, right? Like you have to hold a certain level of GPA, because like you're not just going to get a full soccer scholarship is so rare.
Yeah.
Thinking about how much the scholarships, like if you're piecing at D1, you have 9.9 scholarships, right? And if you're dividing 9.9 into a roster of, we had 28 at Delaware, like you do the math. If you give a 1.0 to a player, like that's bad business because then it's not great. So you have to divide like you can divide it based off of like 20%, 30%, whatever it may be. But your academics is so important because you can also gain academic scholarship. You can gain academic money,
Yeah.
right? Which is again going to be super helpful. One of the first things I would always ask kids is, can you send me your grades? Can you send me your transcripts? And again, no matter how much I like you, if you're not sitting at good grades, then it's not going to benefit both parties. So I think yes, the academics is massive. And then one other piece, which I think is now becoming so much more important, which I spoke about a little bit, is the transfer portal. I think the transfer portal has become so much bigger to the point where college coaches are looking to recruit transfers and then second going to more American kids. I think coaches are more obviously looking at internationals, but more for American kids. The process for them is later. So like going back a couple of years that you would always look at the best juniors and be like, oh, how can I get this junior? But now you're waiting to see which kids come on the portal first, and then the second batch of kids is more transferred. Because you think of it as a coach, right? Would you rather take a college player who's been in college for 2 years
And kind
or a
of
young
proving
American?
himself at the college level.
Exactly, exactly. But I think it's definitely different for internationals because if you've played at a high level in Scotland, England, anywhere in the UK or Europe, then
It goes a
that's
bit
more relevant to playing college soccer than it is for maybe a younger American who's been playing, U17, U18, MLS Next, ECNL, whatever it may be.
Yeah, yeah. And then I guess that kind of pairs in with academics as well. Like, if you
Yeah,
are a good player, you're getting your kind of dream university, dream college. It could be just a fact that your academics let you down and you have to drop
100%.
down a level or so to a college that you're probably not going to be happy with. That academic side of things, yeah, could be the big difference between you being able to have your pick of a few
Yeah,
universities or being forced to go
yeah,
to
yeah.
maybe one or two
100%.
offers. So
And also your academics are going to keep you at that university as well. So like, you're like we've had cases. Well, we'll get sent like sometimes it's at certain schools I've been at, or you'll get sent your weekly updates. You'll get sent your midterm grades. If the midterm grades are not good, like you can get to points where you can take scholarship away. Like you can take training time away. Like you're not coming on this trip because you're failing this class. Like
yeah,
we can't have you missing class. So
and it
you're
looks
academic.
good for the soccer program as well. A lot of
Yeah,
coaches will be very proud of, this is our team
100%,
GPA. I mean, if
100%,
you're the one letting them down on that, it's just going to annoy the coach and it's going to look
100%.
negatively on you as a person
Yeah,
and stuff, and it'll
you don't want
show.
to have to deal with it.
Yeah, it'll show a lack of dedication a little bit, and at that point, yeah, your playing time and your place within the squad could start to be harmed by just bad academics, which a lot of time it's usually from what I sort of see it's not actual intelligence, it's just more of a lack of
Yeah,
effort and willingness to actually do the work, which
100%.
yeah, I always say like if you turn up to all the classes and do the work, you'll get a B. Like most people will get a B or something,
The
which
teachers are there to help you. They're not there
yeah,
to fail
yeah,
you. It's on
exactly.
you
If
if
you
you
try your
fail.
hardest, I think
Yeah,
most people will get a decent grade. It's the ones that yeah don't put any effort in, which I
100%.
was guilty of in my first year. I think that was the worst GPA I got, and then
Yeah,
after that, I think yeah I got a three
bumped
point
up.
three or something like that after cumulative across my time. So we'll finish up with just if you could give one bit of advice to a prospective student athlete in the UK right now who's looking to move over, what would be your key one piece of advice that you would give?
I think the best thing that I would say is again, like I don't know if I'd mention it, but it's the best thing I've ever done. Obviously, 4 years of being a full-time soccer player whilst getting myself a degree. There's nowhere else in the world that you can do that. Whilst getting to travel, playing with lots of friends from all around the world, right? But the biggest piece has to be your research, right? You almost like have to to market yourself the best way. So your research in terms of what school fits well for you. Certain schools won't offer what it is that you want to study, right? Start thinking about what you want to study as well. You're not just going there to be a player, right? There's obviously certain places where you can go and kind of be undecided, and you just show up and you do your Gen Ed classes, it's called, so like the ones that you need to graduate. You have to do your research in terms of have a plan of what it is I want to study, whether it's sports management, business, history, whatever, English. Have that plan, and then just you have to do your research. Like I think one of the biggest things for me was just I got to Maine and it was just like, wow, this is different. So
Yeah.
do your research, watch YouTube videos, talk to the coach, ask the coach questions. Like when I have conversations with kids now, it's like, all right, why should I be at your university? You know, ask the questions. What style do you play? How would I fit with how I play into your playing style? If you're a nine and you're whatever it is, like ask the questions that you think could help you because you don't want to get there and then you're stuck on different questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, the research piece is just massive because it's a big commitment. It's almost like a school can be investing, a $250,000 into you based off how much tuition is. So from their part, they have to do their research on you, but on your part, you obviously have to do your research and you have to show them that you want to be there. So yeah, the research piece I think is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, and ultimately it's your home for the next
Yeah,
4+ years,
yeah,
and you could be, you could stay at the university, do masters, you could be a graduate student, etc. So
100%,
it's your home for 4 years. You need to be
100%,
comfortable and happy there, and that
100%.
should reflect on your grades and your playing time as well. So
No, definitely, man, definitely.
perfect. I really appreciate you coming on and chatting to me, and everyone at
All
home.
good.
Thank you for tuning in, and we will be back sometime in the next couple of weeks for another episode. So thanks for tuning in.